Hey guys, this is Halen, the founder and CEO of ScaleMate, and today I'm taking you through the ultimate LinkedIn prospecting guide, which I have used to run and grow my business over the last 3 years. Let's get into it. So first of all, why LinkedIn as a channel? Well, for B2B sales, and specifically for my case, B2B SaaS, it gives you unparalleled access to decision makers. You have all the data that you need from companies to people working at those companies, every single level. People naturally keep it up to date because they want to tell the world about their promotions. So it's a live database that's fantastic, a rich source of information. In terms of a channel and reaching out to people, email has changed significantly since the release of Microsoft and Google's new rules in 2024. LinkedIn is getting a lot more attention now. So just purely as a channel, I've generally seen people are less likely to respond positively to an email versus a very well-crafted LinkedIn message. It's fast, it's easy to get up and running, there's automation tools available, it's a great channel. Also, not just from a sales angle and getting meetings and booking calls, etc. You connect with someone and now they're in your network. You can push content, they might see it, they might click, they might like, they see your face, you build credibility. So it's not only a direct selling channel where you can book meetings and send resources and all this stuff, you can push content and it becomes a marketing channel as well. So in my opinion, it's a great 2-for-1. Before you send any message or any connection request on LinkedIn, the first thing, the number one thing you should do is document your ideal customer profile. Now this will evolve over time as you learn new things about the market, you experiment with different job titles to target different types of companies, etc., 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 right? Broadly speaking, there are 2 categories of, you use when defining an ICP, right? Company firmographics, which companies, what type of companies are we targeting? And contact demographics, who, at what layer, at what function within those companies are we targeting? That's the first, most basic form of an ideal customer profile. Everyone's kind of familiar with that, I think. You start to get fancy, you start to layer in intent data. Intent data is a whole new topic. I'll probably get into that later. When you are using either LinkedIn Sales Nav or just normal LinkedIn or a software tool outside of that provides you with LinkedIn data, think Apollo, think Ocean, think Clay, right? Those other platforms to get this data into whatever systems you're using. You can use those, that's fine. Each of them have their own challenges and trade-offs. I'll use a very simple example. If you were to scrape LinkedIn Sales Navigator using something like Phantom Buster versus use Apollo, right? Each one has different industry tags and different seniorities and different functions and all this sort of stuff, right? So from a data point of view, no platform is made the same. So also there is a underlying problem of if I'm a software company and my target audience, my target customer is, let's say, retail stores. That company's LinkedIn page will list that they're a retail company, not a software company. So there actually is an issue with industry tags across these platforms that needs to be addressed. Enter Clay, the darling of the sales tech world. You can use AI to solve this. And this is getting a little bit deeper into ICP qualification and making sure there's no noise within your lists and all this sort of stuff. But there are generally problems with just exporting raw data from these systems and then putting them into a sequence. So making sure you've really defined your ideal customer profile and then having a strategy to qualify your lists is a very important step. These tools are really the bare bones essentials for a data strategy, let's call it, and getting data from systems into a workflow, right? I would say at this point, Clay is an absolute must. And it was for the reasons I described earlier with issues with tagging and issues with the underlying data set. Clay is going to allow you, if you know how to use it, to qualify those accounts at scale. So let's just take a very simple example. 8 years ago, when I was an SDR, I would go through a spreadsheet through LinkedIn Sales Navigator, manually put companies into a spreadsheet and then look at each company, get their website manually, and then I would check if they were the right type of company manually and say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then filter by yes, no, right? So I'd only have the yeses, and that's how I used to qualify companies. Clay does that for thousands of rows at scale using AI. So I would say this is basically indisputable at this point. You need it. You should have a subscription to Clay. Can't pitch it hard enough. Second, I'm actually going to go out of order. Apollo is just the backbone of basically LinkedIn data, I'd say. Just the easiest way to get it. Nice and easy to use. Yes, it has its problems, but it's cheap and it's cheerful. So Apollo is something else I definitely use. Ocean.io. This is an interesting one. There's also a company called Panda Match. I've used both. I don't have a strong preference on either. They do introduce quite a bit of noise, but they also do find some gems. So I still think it's kind of worth it. With Ocean or Panda Match, you basically get your top 5 clients or prospects that you really want to get into, like the number 1 guys. And you say, go and find similar companies. Now in the US, it's a massive market. You can do this for quite a few businesses and you still might miss some, right? The goal is to get a comprehensive data set in your system. In Australia, for example, where I'm from, it's a much smaller market. It's very unlikely if you've been in business for 2, 3, 4 years and had some decent sales reps and marketing people that you've missed an account. The only way you'd miss an account is maybe you're targeting the smaller end of town. So 100, 200, 300 employees. And those are quite, they fluctuate quite a lot. People grow into that category. So then there's new businesses, all that sort of stuff. And then LinkedIn Sales Nav, you should always have this. This is important as well for your, not only your data gathering and scraping using something like Phantom Buster, but also having the upper limit of connection requests and messages you can send per week in your automations. So I believe the free account is 100 messages a week 100 connections a week, 200 messages per week. And the Sales Nav or premium account is 150 and 250 respectively. So definitely an important tool to have in the set. Okay, so let's say we've got our data set now. We've got every company, every contact that we would ever want to talk to in a data set. How do we then prioritize those is the question. And really in business, every single decision is a matter of priority. When people say strategy, it really means prioritize. So we have 10,000 people, 20,000 people, whatever it is, in a list. There are buyers in there that are ready to buy now. There are also buyers in there who are not ready to buy for the next 5 years. Depending on your product, depending on sales cycles, all that stuff, it can range. But we all know that there's people who are easy to close like that, and there's people who definitely are not easy to close like that. So how do we do it? This is where we start to build in lead scoring and trigger-based prospecting. So depending on your customer profile, you'll have to figure this out for yourself. You do have to sit down and think, what are the characteristics of my customer profile that increase the propensity for them to buy my software? Now, that's the question you should ask yourself, and then reverse engineer that to say, okay, well, in my case, I can only use my examples, right? If a startup has recently raised money, and when I say recently, it actually doesn't seem to matter too much, but within the last 6 months is my filtering system. If they have raised a seed round, a Series A round, a Series B round, the propensity for them to buy my software is like not even close to anything else, right? It's number 1 for me. So what do? I filter my lists. First, I have to get the information. Crunchbase is a good use of this. Crunchbase API. First, I have to get this information, and now I have to filter by what type of round they raised. Was it seed, pre-seed, Series A, Series B, Series C? That's first step. And then when were they funded and how much? So in an ideal world, we have someone who's raised either a seed or a Series A. That's my kind of niche. In the last 6 months, and then I just I stack it up by how much did they raise? Did they raise $10 million? Did they raise $8 million? I want to talk to the 10 million versus the 8 versus the 7 and so on, right? So those types of triggers are super, super important to figure out for you. It's not going to work. Like if you're not targeting startups, then what I just said was absolutely pointless, right? You need to figure that out for you and then figure out how to automate and lead score a system at scale. Once you have figured out what these triggers are, what this data is that you need to be able to prioritize your entire lead list, how the hell do we then automate it? That's really the question. There are some things that you cannot automate without a significant amount of work. Then the trade-off is how much work do you want to put in versus what are the results you're going to get. So there are some workflows that are completely 100% automatable. I've done them. I have them running all the time. And there's others that just simply aren't yet. Maybe they will be in the future. Right now, they're probably not without a significant lift in your own development. So I'm going to stick with the funding use case. Crunchbase has an API. That API sends a whole bunch of data into Clay. So you can connect Crunchbase to Clay. I think it's through Zapier, actually. N8N's listed here, but Zapier. That will give me a list of companies who are recently funded, who the amount they're funded, the type of funding, the date, all this sort of stuff, right? Now I have my information just constantly being pushed into Clay. Clay can then say, hey, look at this company website. I think it's company website. Find the relevant people at the company, i.e. the founders, the VP of sales, the chief revenue officer, the growth team, et cetera, and now we have the people. Now we have their LinkedIn profiles. And then I can push that again automatically into HeyReach. So those types of automated workflows from step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, detecting a trigger. What's your trigger? That's the question. What is your trigger to get a list into Clay and then send it off to your campaigns? Those are the questions you should be asking yourself. One commonly used trigger is hiring for a role. So for example, I have 2 roles open right now, GTM engineer and GTM consultant. Hiring for a role, the job ad's posted, that's the trigger, that's the action. That's the action that's going to get a company and the people you want to target into a list, right? This basically then says, go and look at the job description, analyze why the company might be hiring for this role based on their mission, based on their stated goal on their website, and then write me a personalized message that we're going to use in our messaging campaigns. So again, this is in Clay. Clay can connect to ChatGPT, connect to a whole bunch of other stuff, but then you can prompt it to do personalization techniques like this at scale. So we've identified the trigger. We have some sort of personalization strategy, which again is very important. Ideally, you want to keep it under 300 characters. I actually think that's a little bit long. I try to keep it short, sweet, to the point. Long LinkedIn messages don't work. To be honest, long emails don't work either. Just long in general doesn't work, is what I've seen. You want to have a relatively easy CTA. Depends on the business. My business is all about booking meetings. No one's ever going to buy my services without talking to me or the team. So I want to book a meeting. I honestly keep it simple. I've seen like 1 million people try fancy CTAs or thinking outside of the box CTAs. I just say, do you want to chat? It works. Like, they're going to have to talk to me anyway. They're not going to make a decision on something like this without speaking to me. So depends on your business, depends on who you're targeting. Of course, everything I talk about, don't take it as gospel, like apply it to your own industry. But it should be a short message, I think, is the main thing here. Okay, so this is continuing on with the job posting trigger. So they've listed a job, could be for an account executive, SDR, VP of sales, could be a cybersecurity analyst, like it could be whatever. It can be applied to any industry. So hi, notice you're hiring for X role. In my experience, usually you hire for this role when you're looking to do X, in this case, scale sales or something. We've helped several companies in this industry, like a similar client, drop a name, streamline this, scale this, whatever that messaging is. And then the CTA, I've got a doc that explains it. Cool if I share. Now, that is a decent CTA that's pretty low friction. It's not going to, you will see drop off with this. There's a risk, 100%. So they'll say, yep, you send the doc, you never hear back. It is more of a soft message. I wouldn't use this campaign as a way to directly book meetings necessarily, but it's like an awareness campaign. So that's the type of thing that you think about when you're designing this stuff. If you're going to reach out to, existing connections who you just have in your network, maybe this is a good idea to build some credibility, give some value, all that sort of stuff. Versus, hey, let's chat, here's my Calendly, right? That's a more direct campaign that's targeted to get meetings. Now, everyone can send a super personalized message to one individual or 10 individuals or 20 individuals, right? What's very difficult is sending personalized messages at scale to thousands of people. So there is, again, a trade-off. You will probably be able to write a more personalized message manually than you will automatically at scale. Fair critique. However, You can get it to a point now, if you know what you're doing, that is definitely personalized enough and still gets results. And I would argue gets better results than doing things manually. Let's say manually gets a 10 or 20% reply rate. I can do that with automation. And automation gets volume, more volume driven through the system. So I argue on LinkedIn, 100% automation is the way to go. Email may be different these days, but for LinkedIn, this is the approach. So again, Clay, AI for efficient personalization at scale. So you can use prompts like, use the input to complete my sentence in under 8 words. Basically, it's saying, go look at this LinkedIn post, give me the main idea of each post, and summarize it in 8 words. And that's going to be used as a prefix for a message in the next slide. So setting up your sequence on LinkedIn, the first step is always a connection request. Like if you can increase your connection rate, then you're going to send more messages, reach more people within your ICP. That's first step. Debate around how long you wait until you send the first message. I've done it in a few hours. I've also done it in a few days. Really depends on your customer profile. For example, if you're going after a customer base that's huge, 50,000, 60,000, 100,000, 400,000 contacts, right? Then you can probably just be quick. And there's so many, potential customers out there. It's just like insane. So you can be faster there, I would say, and probably send more messages more frequently. Versus if you're a super niche enterprise software that only has 2,000 people in your ICP in the US, then I'd probably be a little bit more cautious. Maybe wait a couple of days, craft your messages in a better way. So I like to send, obviously, the initial personalized outreach, and then I try to add value across the follow-ups rather than just say, hey, did you see this message? Those are also fine, but just like not all the time. Try to add some sort of value in the message, whether that be a loom, whether it be a document, or whether it just be an explanation of something. Asking questions is good. It does actually get engagement, I think. And then obviously including at some point a direct call to action. That could be in your first message. It could be in your fourth message. And then just spacing the days accordingly. Like people aren't on LinkedIn all the time. They're not. Might get notifications on their phone, but they're not just sitting there waiting for your message to come through, unfortunately. So spacing it out 2, 3, 4 days, depending on your ICP, it's really up to you. Now we can think about different forms of media in your outreach to try and stand out. A little bit more effort, but does work if used effectively. So document-based outreach is, hey, I've got this document, like the LinkedIn prospecting guide I'm going through right now. I can send it to you, basically. That's going to, again, increase credibility, trust, and maybe one day they come back and buy your product. Fine. Voice messages, I have tried this a little bit. I actually did try an AI software that changes the name of each person every time you send a message automatically. So you only have to film it once and then it can be applied to everyone. I don't think the tech is quite there. It's close, but it's not quite. I did actually get some responses from when I did it manually as well. Some interesting ones. I think here I would just be careful of not doing a generic message on voice because it should be super personalized. Like if you're going to that effort, you may as well personalize the shit out of it, right? So really tell them like, hey, I want to work with you because of this reason and this is what I saw, and you may as well put that effort in if you're going to do that manually, is my opinion. And I got some pretty good responses out of doing like 50 of them and a few meetings booked. So video messages, this one you can do at scale. So just a loom, send a case study breakdown, a certain feature of your product, a generic overview of your product, like a live demo kind of thing. So that's worked as well. I've seen that work, especially if the demo's good. If the demo's good, that captures attention and it actually pre-qualifies the person before a meeting as well. So I've seen each of these strategies work. It really depends how you use them and the type of product you're selling, type of market, and how personalized you're willing to go. Now, it definitely helps when you have a good looking, busy LinkedIn profile. So if you send a message, what's the first thing you do? You probably click the link to go, who's Halen? I want to see who this guy is, right? You want to optimize your profile. Make sure you have a banner, make sure you have a nice photo, all this sort of stuff. Case study posts, I do a lot of those. I try to do thought leadership stuff as well. value first content. Hopefully people get value from my content. That's the entire goal. And objection handling content is something I've been doing recently. Discovery calls. You want to try a bit of everything really. But ultimately the point of this is optimizing your profile, making sure you're not just another salesperson or another founder or whatever. Try to stand out, have a voice on LinkedIn, and conversions 100% without a doubt go up. Now we've sent out messages, they've looked at our profile and they're like, I want to book a meeting with this guy or gal. How do we then qualify? So we've done some qualification, right? We've used Clay to find the right companies, the right contacts. We've overlaid intent, all this sort of stuff. There will still be noise within that list because people leave, they become consultants, the Clay prompt isn't always perfect and that needs tweaking. It's slightly over time and all this stuff. There'll still be noise. Sorry to break it to you. You're not going to get every single meeting that's going to be perfect. Doesn't exist. Now, you just want to limit the noise, obviously. So now they've booked a meeting, or they're booking a meeting. They've shown interest. Now we can qualify them further. For me, I use Calendly. Calendly allows you to have questions that need to be answered before they submit a meeting request. So in my form, basically, I want to know how much they've been funded. Sometimes they don't tell you that. So that's interesting. Then you go check Crunchbase. It's publicly available. So funding, amount of people that work there, job title, get their LinkedIn profile in that just to make sure. So a couple questions, and sometimes they're outside of ICP for me. So if they aren't funded, my rule is I need them to have more than 10 employees if they're bootstrapped. If they have 7 employees, it's then my decision to say, well, they're an enterprise software, their ACV is probably 80K, 100K a year. I'll meet with them anyway, right? So those are the types of decisions you can automate to a point, but sometimes come down to a genuine human decision where maybe the founder's got a crazy background and he's done, 3 exits and, I definitely want to meet with this guy, but he's only got 2 employees and he's bootstrapped. Well, I'll meet with him for sure. So it really depends, again, on your business. What are your qualification criteria? And trying to automate that as much as humanly possible. Now, the platform that I use for LinkedIn automation is predominantly HeyReach now. HeyReach, I've used Dripify before. I've used a couple of others. Dripify is great, just doesn't have an API, which is super annoying. So HeyReach is, in my opinion, faster, cheaper, and better, which is a great sell. So I use HeyReach as my main platform for LinkedIn automation. A lot of people don't know this probably, but I actually use a virtual assistant out of the Philippines to basically run the campaigns that can't be automated. So I do have a lot of completely automated campaigns, the funding one, people liking and commenting on industry posts and targeting them directly. There are some campaigns that just can't be automated just yet. I actually use a VA for that. That process is very difficult until you've done it. And once it's done, it's great because it's a cheap channel and a cheap source of labor. So one thing, if you are going to use virtual assistants for lead generation and LinkedIn automation, email automation, whatever, detailing your SOPs is the most important part. When I say everything needs to be clear, it needs to be crystal clear. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Here's what happens if this happens, and building in those contingencies as well. You just need to be very methodical and structured when using a VA. It took me 4 goes to find my assistant. And then I finally found her, and she's been with me for a little bit over a year now. So if you are going to use VAs, be careful. It can be hard. You need to be prescriptive. Do not allow them to strategize, basically. That's not their job. That's your job. You have to just give them the work, and it needs to be 100% clear. All right, so let's talk about numbers. The first step in any LinkedIn campaign is to send a connection request. A connection request, if you send 100, how many accept? Well, that depends on your profile. It depends on if you send a message. If you don't, what's in the message? Do you view their profile before it? Have you ever liked one of their posts? Have you ever followed them? Like, a whole bunch of things go into that metric. In my opinion, 30% acceptance rate or above is considered very good. You should be happy with 30% for sure. You can get 65%. I have done that with multiple clients and myself, but 30% is good. Next is you send a message, who replies? So what's the reply rate? Is it 2%? Is it 25%? I've seen both, right? It's a pretty broad metric. Depends on the message, depends on the ICP, how well have you targeted them and qualified them, etc., etc. To give you an idea, I think the average is about 3% on LinkedIn. I consistently get above 25. That's just the impact of relevant messaging and triggers. Then, how many of those people convert to a meeting? So positive replies versus negative replies. Well, I do see naturally, compared to email back in the day, I see naturally a drop off from LinkedIn. So even if they say, yeah, let's chat, there's always going to be quite a few contacts that just never ever book that call, even if you send them a Calendly and a follow up and all this stuff. There's a natural drop off from LinkedIn. I would expect, and in my calculations, it's 50% people, positive replies who don't show to a meeting. Then there's the show up rate, like 20-ish%, 15% of those people don't ever show up, depends on the ICP. So those are the types of metrics that I look to track. And there's some benchmarks for you. This isn't groundbreaking news, but continually optimize your process, change messaging, A/B test, find different triggers, have a look at who's responding and double down, all that stuff, all that good stuff always needs to be done. If you stuck around for this whole video, here's a bonus for you. One of the best data sources in the world is the people following your competitor's LinkedIn company page. I can get that data for you. This is consistently one of the best campaigns I've ever seen across myself, across every single client I've ever done it with. It's a great source of data and contact information. Scraping that and sending them a very, very targeted message has been a huge success for ScaleMate and clients. So if you would like this document, if you would like to chat with me about any of these workflows, any of these tools, whatever it is, then send me a message, send me a connection request. Hopefully I accept, and I'm in that 30% of acceptances, and then we can go from there. Thank you very much.